Hi guys, welcome to Interior Insights. I'm Jane and today we're going to look at a really amazing showroom and atelier of two really amazing abstract artists, Pippo Kuri and Daniel Hennemann. Before this place used to be a flower shop, before it was completely abandoned for a few years, and then it was completely remodeled and redone, and now this is what we have today. And you can see the history of the place was really kept and wasn't completely forgotten. So for example, because this place used to be a flower shop, you still have all of these green plants that really tell the story everywhere. I managed to get all of the old before pictures, and you can really see how the different rooms looked before and versus how they look today. And I think that is really unique, and it really just shows you that no matter how any space or building or apartment or room looks, there's just so much you can do with it. And as we come inside the studio, you can already see that this isn't just some super clean gallery, but this place is just constantly living and breathing art. You can really see how the history of this place was respected and integrated into the part of the design. So stay tuned and watch the video till the end. If you like the video, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Because all of the art is so colorful and always tells such an intimate and personal history and story, the atelier itself was kept quite minimalist, and it was just really renovated from the way that it looked before, because it was broken down, completely abandoned building, and the walls were just painted in white so that the art can really pop off the white walls. The complete idea of the studio and atelier is that it's not just a place for working, but also a place for living, and it was never intended to be this perfect clean gallery where people just come in, go through and go outside again, but rather this is also where the artists create their work, and it's also a place where a lot of events and parties happen. This is the back of the showroom, and over here we have a beautiful lighthouse, and this is another situation in this really cool atelier that is really unique and just really speaks to the history of this place. Here we have a beautiful Persian carpet that really frames the room and creates living room layout. Over here we have a sofa, a really old vintage sofa with floral prints, and the fabric and print of this sofa pulls back to the history of this place, as of course all of the plants. As you can see, nothing in this studio is too perfect. Everything is really raw and rich and kept the way, not the way that it was found, but it wasn't artificially enhanced. So over here you have a brick wall that has been laid free, and here you have all of these beautiful bits of paint, and you have just this really rustic, chic, but also kind of shabby style, and I think it's really good. And it goes really well with everything, because it's just, you feel the art that you have here, it's living, and it's really integrating itself really well. Over here we have two sofa chairs, which really add a pop of color, because the rest of this beautiful atrium has more of these beiges and greens and whites. And we have another piece of art of Pippo Kuri, and here you can again see that the essence of art is really having these geometric basic forms and just adding this splash of color. Or over here, another thing I really love is that all of the decor that we see in this beautiful studio isn't just any random thing that has been put here and placed here, but everything really has a big history and really speaks to the whole story. For example, this liquor brand, Jägermeister, Pippo Kuri once had a collaboration with them where he basically painted a painting for them, cut it up into pieces. They basically became the logos for the bottles, and these are two of them. And you have kind of your personal story ingrained in the design and in the decor. It's just really fun and really unpretentious. They weren't too strict with the ideas that they had. Or here we can see a light box, which is also cool, and it wasn't hidden, but you really feel you really see every day that the artists are working here, creating their art, but at the same time they created a space for people to come and enjoy. Also, this is a really beautiful artwork by Pippo Kuri that I love. And these artworks, this is a series of him, long journey format. They depict different stories and different travels that he had. We kind of have the atmosphere of a second home. So of course, on one hand, the focus is the art and the making of art, but at the same time, you have all of this beautiful vintage furniture. And most of the vintage furniture is actually used to belong to the grandmother of Pippo Kuri. And I think that is really beautiful that this her spirit just really lives on amongst these walls. For example, these beautiful vintage chairs are hers, as are all of beautiful coffee cups and silverware, and I think that is really beautiful. And here again, we can see that the amazing history of this place wasn't just demolished and ignored and everything was created really clean, but when they found this place, basically the workers had already demolished the plaster up until here, but basically then they just stopped and left. And instead of like covering it up and creating something different, he decided to just leave it as he found it. And I think that this is really beautiful because this kind of like imperfect, raw scenery tells another story. We have like a seating area. This design is like really dreamy and has a lot of different layers. All of these like differently small compositions. For example, like this painting and then the lamp and the table, and it looks perfectly done on accident, and I just want to like sit down and drink from my vintage teacups. This basically, I would say, this is like the dining room. And I mean, of course it isn't a dining room, but this place was never intended to be just a perfect gallery, but rather be a place where people come and meet and have a nice time. And you just feel so much more at home if you have like a table and 4 beautiful vintage chairs standing here. Over here we have the vintage coffee cups from Pippo Cody's grandmother, and amazing silverware, and I love it. Behind this door the bathroom is hiding, but the way that it was painted in this like muted pastel pink, it creates again an artwork by itself. And here, if we go over here, we can see 2 different types of styles that Pippo Cody really follows through in his art. So on the right, we already talked about it, is this like long journey format where he talks about his travels and all of the experiences he's made, whereas in his life before becoming an artist, he was an entrepreneur. And here on the left side of me, he has a different type of series that he calls Entrepreneurial Spirit. And this is where he basically talks about parts of being an entrepreneur and like the journey and all of the different types of structures you need, all of the different geometric forms. Always talk about like structure and clear choices and like being rational when being an entrepreneur and all of the decisions that you have to make, while all of these like insane splashes of color, they always depict like the creativity or like the act of innovation that you have to do to sustain and like live and not die out as a business. And I think that that's really cool. And I feel like this is the exact same thing that you need when designing a successful space. That you need like clear structure and clear forms, and for example, a clear idea of what colors you want and need and that they all match. But then at the same time, in any room, you always have to create something really unexpected, or like you need like a certain degree of innovation like you need when you are an entrepreneur, and to create this like really exciting design. So here you have all of the different acrylic paints that Pippo Cody uses in his artwork. So as you are just walking through the gallery, you are also like introduced not just to the perfectly finished art, but you're also really like get to see the different parts of the process of making art. And I think that that's really cool. Now we will go inside the atelier and working space of Daniel Hellermann. And the tiles in this room also really speak to the history of this place. And I think that is just another really thoughtful element that really like respects the history, and I love that. So these used to be just regular, not very beautiful tiles, but they were painted in this really dove petrol green. What I like so much about this showroom is that you can really see the process of making art. For example, this table here is exactly the table where all of the art happens and where it like basically is pulled into existence. And I think that is really cool. Or this artwork over here on the wall, you can again see all of the reflection, and I can see myself in it. And he uses epoxy resin to make his art, and basically he adds like a lot of different layers. If we go over here, we have a kitchen. It is fully functional, and because there are so many different events hosted, or because the artists are also working here during the day, it is in constant use, but also just by the amount of shot glasses, you can see that a lot of things happen here. The wooden floor actually used to be covered before when it was a flower shop. It used to be covered by something, and it was just laid visible when they moved inside and started like renovating everything. And you can see this by this little step. And this actually, for some time, this place used to be a showroom for a clothing brand, and this used to be like the dressing room. And after the clothing brand moved out, they didn't really know what to do with it, so they just kept it like this. And this is also like a really cool little living room area situation where you can just come, relax. Here you have a little box of sweets where kids come in to play. Or here again you have from the grandmother a beautiful service table on wheels that you move around from, I don't know, the 1930s or something. Or this really fun printed small sofa that again speaks to the place of being a flower shop. Or over here on the floor, somebody just sprayed "Good to see you." And I think this just really shows how fun and casual the design is, even though I believe everything here is there for a reason. Now, we will go inside the coolest room of this showroom and atelier, and I don't know if you can see it perfectly on video, but we will try. So, as I told you before, one of the series of People Kuti is Entrepreneurial Spirit, and these are again the paintings that I was talking about. And because this like intense splash of color stands for like innovation or being really creative, doing something beyond what was done before. When you turn on blacklight, these paintings come to life, and I think that that is really fun. It's a chrome sphere that has been placed on the floor, and you see yourself and you see the room reflected in all of like the bold, differently crazy colors reflected. Or also on the ceiling we have change perspective written on it, and you just have all of these like different things happening at the same time. People love to take photos here, and I really get that. Here we have another really cool moment. So all of the invisible frames that are used for both of the artists' art, and they come directly from a really amazing and talented woodworker, and all of the different types of frames that you can have. And you just have this really beautiful composition that is created through repetition and just by repeating the same like triangular form. And I think it's really cool, and you can also like, you can touch it and you can see directly the quality. If you liked the video, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Hope you learned something new and are inspired to try out something on your own. Thank you very much.